All right. Thanks, everybody. It feels really good to be here. And for the introduction. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about breaking silence, but mostly we're going to go on a beautiful journey of making friends with some of our pain sometimes. So this is a brand new talk. I'm very good at doing what I always do, but I want to challenge myself. So if this sucks, well, too bad, but we're in it. All right. So breaking silence, I'll give you some context on that. That is my nonprofit. We engage and inspire communities to take action, recognize their responsibility for the impact of interpersonal violence. If you don't know what interpersonal violence is, that is violence that happens between two people. It can be anything: domestic violence, sexual assault, sexual harassment, stalking, etc. So we really want to decrease the rate of that. And we think that you do that through empathy, healing, and creating safe spaces to have open dialogue. So what I ask of everybody every time I do a talk is I just want you to lean in. I want you to be where you are right now, because when you do that, we get to learn about stories. Stories at the heart of breaking silence. We use the stories of survivors in an exhibit, and I'll give you a lot more context of that here in a minute. But the most rebellious thing we can ever do is share a story and be authentically who we are. So authenticity is a big pillar of breaking silence. I know it's also one of yours here in goodr, but for us, it's when we know our stories, we know ourselves. When we know ourselves, we feel empowered. We feel empowered to have spaces where people are going to listen. We're going to have hard conversations. We're going to do a million things that feel very difficult, but it's going to feel really, really good, because at the end of empowerment, we have empathy. Empathy is a driver of all of our work. It is what we do at the core of breaking silence, is to create empathy, environments where empathy is practiced and used. When we do that, we decrease the rate of violence. So empathy is going to be a key here. And I'm basically going to teach you how to find empathy. And I'm going to tell you something you don't want to hear. Empathy is really fucking hard. It's really hard. And you're not going to like it, because to be empathetic means to connect to yourself. And we don't like that very much, because to connect to ourselves, we have to admit that we have flaws and our stories are hard. But you cannot have empathy if you cannot feel what's going on inside of you. So we are going to find our why. First, I'm going to tell you about my why. Why the hell does breaking silence exist? Why am I so obsessed with empathy? Why? So, to tell you my why, I have to tell you a little bit about my background. As always, breaking silence really is about safe spaces. If at any time you need to leave, or if I trigger you, or if any emotion comes up where the safe thing for you to do is to get out of this room, get out of this room, please. That is the design of what we do here. Listen to your bodies, listen to your hearts. So with that, I am a survivor of childhood abuse. I was sexually assaulted from the age of 7 until I was 12. And my realization that what this thing was abuse and bad came when a very brave man, when I was in middle school, shared his story of being sexually abused by his mother. He started talking about things like abuse and incest and how he didn't want these things. And 11-year-old Allie was sitting in that crowd being like, holy fuck, I have to leave. I have to get out of here. All of these things that I have been feeling, these feelings of why is this happening to me? Why is my cousin doing this? Why do I hate it so much? Why was being answered by this person. My why would become my driver for everything. It would become the realization for me that I wanted out of this abuse, that I wanted to stop it. A year would go by and I would shut the abuse down. I would get out of it. And I would carry on to tell my story. I would report my story. I reported it to my middle school teacher, counselor. I knew he was a mandatory reporter, and that was really, really important to me because I didn't want my story to just die in silence. I knew if I told somebody, something would have to happen. Within 24 hours, I would go from not telling a single person about my story to telling 10 people about my story. A fun thing about reporting is you don't just tell it once and then people are like, great, we have everything that we need. I will write it down and pass this along to someone that needs it. You have to do that 10 times. You have to do it with multiple people at the school, with multiple police officers, multiple detectives, multiple advocates. And I have to say things like boobs and vagina and words that for 12-year-olds sucks a whole lot to say out loud. But I also saw that when I would tell my story, even amongst these professionals, they would get very uncomfortable, as if I had to reach across to them and be like, it's okay, I'm okay, everything's okay. I was protecting them from my own story. I found it completely absurd. And this would basically be my experience for the rest of time, so I made a decision. Part of my why would be to make sure everybody else found theirs. And then when you share your story, people don't look at you like you have 17 heads. People look at you like you're a person. And they respond with empathy and words like, I believe you. To be honest with you, I have no idea what to do, but I do want to sit in this pain with you. Instead of asking things like, how do I fix it? How do I make it go away? How do I make it better? Instead, just simply being. So I would share my story over and over again. I started sharing it when I was 16 years old to panels of sex offenders and people that worked in the field, expressing to them how I wanted them to answer to survivors just like me. This would lead me to going on in college to working for the student government. And in the student government, I was hired with a very easy task: eliminate all sexual assault and domestic violence on Colorado State University within a year. No problem. So I did the usual things, had the vagina monologues come, passed out pamphlets, told people about statistics, and I was sitting in a beautiful cave with the same 20 people over and over again. These same 20 people were also survivors. They didn't need to hear what I was saying. They weren't the problem. They were the impact of those stats. So I decided I wanted to do something a little bit more creative. I was going to school as a history major, and I was going to be a teacher. So I said, well, what if we did an exhibit? I remember this one time in 8th grade, I went to the Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C., and something I had no business being connected to, like the genocidal murdering of 6 million people, I felt with every fiber of my being walking through that exhibit. So I thought, why not do that? Well, I'll Google it. There has to be something like this that exists in the world. It didn't. So I made it myself. I started recording survivor stories. I took their stories and I broke it up into 3 parts. I was going to put 3 stories in this exhibit, recreate the settings, whether there was homes or kitchens or living rooms, and people would walk through and they would hear it. They would listen to these survivors' whys. They would listen to what was going on and what we could do, why it was important to hear it, why it was important to stop it, why. This exhibit would become, and is, the flagship program of Breaking Silence. It is what we do. So here today, I'm going to break down that exhibit the best way that I think I can. And that is to talk about how we move from being hurt to being heard. We have a phrase at Breaking Silence: hurt people, heal people, heal people. From hurt to heard also happens to be the name of the sunglass that we are dropping. You are dropping. I'm not dropping a sunglass. That you are dropping for Breaking Silence. So I figured we could go on a journey about moving from hurt to heard. In order to understand how to be heard in our stories, we have to first understand what in the hell is hurting us. There are these things that we call triggers, and I mean a trigger being something that when you've experienced something bad, someone says something or does something and it really stresses you out, and you answer in a triggered response. These are pain points and they stick with us for the rest of our lives. I'm going to walk you through some of mine. These triggers, I've decided to make characters. They're wonderful friends of mine. They've been around with me for a very long time, and they've been incredible at protecting me. But these little protectors, they have a flaw, because the core of all of them is to make sure that you all stay at a distance from me. Their job is to keep me alive. When we are triggered and we respond in our trigger responses, we do so because we think if we don't, we will die. And when you've experienced trauma, this is very real. Trauma teaches us that if we didn't do what we had to do, we would have died. And these protectors helped us live and survive. Through my work with thousands of survivors, these 5 little characters tend to show up in their story in some way, shape, or form. So I want you to just think about your triggers. Maybe these little protectors that I'm going to walk us through aren't yours, but maybe a variation of them is. And also know I'm not crazy. I know that these things are not alternate personalities of mine, but I think that when we create something outside of ourselves, it's easier to think about our protectors as beings as opposed to problems. Triggers are not something to solve. Triggers are something to embrace, to say that it is here and acknowledge it. But first, with any problem, we have to know what the problem is. So my first protector, by the way, AJ did all of these little characters for me, so I just need to plug that because they're amazing. So I don't know if he's here, wherever he is. All right, so my first protector is the night. My night would come along in situations when I was 12 and I was trying to get out of that abuse. My night was triggered. This protector was incredible because it got me to have the courage to look at the person that was abusing me for all of those years and say, this is over. I am done. This is not happening anymore. And my night doesn't take bullshit from anybody. I will fight you tooth and nail on anything. I'm a 2, so I guess in the Enneagram world, we would call this my 8, right? This thing has no bullshit. It is going to fuck you up and fuck everybody up that tries to hurt anybody in my life. My knight is a badass protector, and it got me out of the worst experience of my life. And this gets triggered whenever I feel like someone is trying to take me down. You want to take me down? Well, I will fight you. Instead of empathy and understanding for maybe what you're actually going through, fuck that noise. Let's fight. My magician. My magician is very creative. I don't know if you guys are Harry Potter fans, but I am. And the man that this is based off is Gilderoy Lockhart. Gilderoy is a terrible, terrible wizard. He fucking sucks at basic spells that like 12-year-olds can do. But the man can do one spell really great. Remove your memories. He's extremely good at the art of deception. How do I build a web of lies so complicated? You will never know who I am. In fact, I don't know who I am. That's part of the trick. You think you get to know me? Absolutely not. Now I'm over here. This kept me safe in all of the moments that I was bullied for being a survivor. In my experience of coming out as somebody that was being abused at the age of 12, I got news for you. We were going through puberty. Kids suck. It was not a good time. So I would be a magician. What do you want me to do? What trick do you want to see? What art of deception do you need from me to make sure that you like me? Who am I? Who cares? I can do magic. The sweeper. This one was born inside of me, I think inside of my mother's womb as a Catholic. The sweeper is really great. Let's just move shit and sweep it on over here. We'll collect it in a nice, neat pile of garbage, but do not look at it, don't think about it. Just move it aside forever and always, and it's fine. That elephant? What elephant? I don't see a fucking elephant. It's fine. Just ignore it. My sweeper is very effective, usually, honestly, when I have to do my job, right? It keeps me from going into a triggered panic state because I am fine. I am amazing. I have dealt with everything. I, as Kelly so nicely said, am the epitome of empathy. I am awesome. Ignore that rug. Don't even look at it, please, for the love of God. So, my sweeper is extremely good at making me a professional in the mess. My sweeper is so helpful, but yet she keeps me at a distance. The authenticity for me to stand on the stage comes when I'm willing to lift up the rug. My ever-optimist has kept me alive, quite literally. In moments of depression, I was extremely suicidal. I was having panic attacks. I didn't want to live through this life. I was 14 dealing with things that no 14-year-old should have to deal with. And the only protector that came to my side in those moments was my optimist. And my optimist told me, why don't you look outside? Maybe it's not that bad. Maybe there are some things worth living for. My optimist, though, however, hates sadness a whole lot, and it actually categorizes depression as bad and happiness as good. My optimist says there's only one way to live this life, and it is full of fucking joy, baby. And yes, she kept me alive at my core. But now, as I've kind of dealt with some of my pain, when I'm depressed, my optimist kind of sucks. Because when I feel depressed, my optimist is like, come on, pull yourself up from your bootstraps, let's get out there. And it's like, well, maybe just be okay that I feel sad. And they're like, no, we don't believe in that. My optimist was very good at making sure I didn't take my own life. But my optimist does keep me from accepting, at times, my depression and anxiety and its honesty. And finally, the victim. Maybe the most obvious in my story is my victim. I mean, I'll paint the picture of why she's here, but the victim for me was quite literally what I was called. On the stand, I'm a victim. In my story, I'm a victim. I'm his victim. To be a victim meant I would be protected. As long as I was the victim, I had police officers and detectives and lawyers and therapists and advocates that all were standing next to me saying, I love you and I'm going to protect you. Unfortunately for me, my victim, who's probably the strongest of all of my protectors, especially when I'm triggered, tells me that in order for me to feel love, I must feel pain. In order for me to be wanted, I must be suffering. This makes me at times very manipulative. If you're going to leave me, I'll make drama happen. Because the biggest fear that I have, the biggest fear that most survivors have, is that you will leave. Abandonment is at the core of every survivor because we lost everything. The thing we lost mostly, though, ourselves. And our goal in life is to find it back. And the only way I get to do that is by thanking my victims, by thanking all of them, by listening to them. These protectors have helped me through the most difficult parts of my life. They became a part of my hurt and my pain. I can never get rid of them. I cannot. And I will get triggered. And the goal of all of this is for me to be like, hey, victim, what's up? I see you. I hear you. I know, but I got this. Because in doing so, I'm finding me, my authenticity. Who am I? I am not these protectors. No victim, no survivor are these protectors. You are not these triggers. But we have to make friends with them. We have to make peace with them, because if we want to hear others, we have to hear ourselves. You do not get to find empathy until you find it for yourself. The reason I point out these protectors and stand up here and share maybe the 5 worst sides of me with all of you is because to do so is to give empathy at its honest point. If I know I'm triggered and I'm not willing to admit that I am, I become an asshole. I miss people. I miss connection. I drive it away. And empathy drives connection. Empathy drives love. Empathy heals us. But we have to be willing to listen. There are little characters sitting inside of each and every one of you, and I would love to know what they are. And you have to explore it and make friends with them. If you want to hear the people in your life, you got to hear what's going on for you first. We forget that. As a survivor, I am willing to take care of every other person, and I hate taking care of me. I get asked often, would you say this to somebody else, whatever bullshit I'm saying to myself? And my answer is like, no, that's insane. I would never say this to somebody else. Why are you saying it to you? I don't know, because I'm a survivor and I'm hurt right now. That's why. So I have to be okay with this to feel grounded. Listening and curiosity is where we find empathy and kindness. How the hell, though, do we heal, and how do we listen? When we start to listen to these things and we see all the healing, I'm pretty sure this is what all of you think healing looks like. Okay? It's very linear. I'm going to guess my 1s, my 5s, my 6s, maybe some 7s in here. You're going to love this. This is great. Look, super bad thing happens. I obviously know it right away. I'm like, bad thing, don't like bad things. Totally recognize that immediately. And I'm ready to move on. That's great. And then later happens, and like hashtag time heals everything. So some later happened. It's been like a few years, so I'm good. And then I'm kind of thought the bad thing sometimes. I don't really think about it much anymore. Some more time has passed. And then an imaginary time later, okay, I'm all better. So I used to believe when I did these talks, like I had to be at the okay, all better part, because if I'm not healed, how do I get to talk to you about healing? And as I was laying out this slide, I was like, well, fuck, I'm not at imaginary time later. So what am I? I'm this. So as are you. I'm sad for you because this is what healing looks like. It's this mess. It's chaos. It's a hodgepodge of, I don't know. I think over here I was like thriving, and then, I don't know, depression hit again, and who fucking knows? So this is what healing looks like. And my little characters are all up in this. At times, my triggers are super intense and hard to handle, and at times, I'm zen. And that's what healing is. Healing is just our ability to lean into the fact that it's chaos, to listen to the chaos. It's not linear. I was literally writing a book 6 years ago about how to heal. So I had a literal beginning, a middle, and an end. Welcome, ta-da! And you'll never guess where I got stuck. At the end. I wrote 3/4 of a book, and I was like, well, fuck me, what is the end? What is healing? I don't know. I don't know. This is my best guess. Because I know it's messy. Because what happened to me is messy. Healing is simply a part of life. It is ongoing and forever. It never stops. There is one universal truth in this world, and that is that we all will feel pain. It connects us. It drives us. It is the thing that we all literally experience, no matter who you are. That means that if we all feel pain, we all get to heal. We all get to live inside of healing. Also, when the thing that hurt you sucks, it never stops sucking. I could tell you my story a million times over. It will always suck that I was abused as a child. You cannot give me enough time, enough words, or enough perspective to turn the fact that being abused as a child is now somehow better. It's never better, because that is too bad of a thing. It just is that. And I can go through, I've been in therapy since I was 12 years old. I have talked about this story upside down, backwards and forwards, and there are still moments inside of my story where I get choked up. Because I lost something, I can't get it back. And it's okay that it's still hard. I used to believe that in this perfect victim mantra, which was, I can't be too sad, but I gotta be kind of sad, and I have to be upset, but not too upset, and it has to impact me, but not super impact me. That's the perfect victim. And I believed that I had to be perfect at being hurt, and I don't. I have to be perfectly imperfect at being hurt. So the thing that we shift is our perspective on what happened, not the thing itself. The thing itself will always suck, but we don't suck. I'm not that hurt. I'm not that pain. I'm not my triggers. I am me. So the kindest way that we get here is through curiosity. How did I find all of these little characters? When we were little, we used to be imaginative. We would play games. We'd build characters. We had imaginary friends. I was with my little nephew, and I was just playing in his space and in this world, and he was dealing with really complex things like boundaries and how to say no and why. And he was doing it while we were scuba diving underneath the sea. And I was like, I think he's on to something here. Dealing with hard shit, but in an imaginative way. That sounds really amazing and probably what movies are. But it was, to me, this moment of realizing that I just need to get curious. I'm so stuck on fixing it that I forgot to just get curious on what is happening inside of me. Why am I triggered? Why do I feel so bad about it? Why am I doing this? I was giving myself my why, and I didn't realize it. I was asking myself and giving myself permission to the thing that was given permission to me when I was 11 years old. Why? Why do I still have panic attacks? Why is this so hard? How do I get curious about it? And then how do I be kind? Because maybe my why at all costs for me is just, why can't I be kind to myself about what happened? Why can't I do that? I'm asking you to lean in. I'm calling these the healing swirls. TM'd. All right, so lean into these healing swirls. I don't have the answers. All I have is empathy and understanding and curiosity. That is what my organization does. It helps people feel at their core the shit you don't want to feel. That's what breaking silence is. It's creating safe spaces with the one that I hope you're feeling right now. And it's asking you to lean into the healing swirls. The complicated, the good, the zen, the messed up, the hard. The times that we break and the times we put ourselves back together. And above all else, to find your why. Maybe your why is mine too. Maybe your why is, why can't I be kinder to myself? And if that is your why, you're a brave person for even thinking it, for even knowing it about yourself.